coasters there. And I took it as my mission that year. I said, I want to have every kid ride a roller coaster. And I got every kid except for one, and that was Andrea. And this year, Andrea got to go, and man, I was trying hard. I was texting her dad all day, sending him videos, and she'll ride this slingshot. Not a slingshot, like those spinning thing. It takes you like 150 feet in the air. She'll ride that, go in circles. That to me, that's terrifying. And she will do that, but she won't ride a roller. That's so easy, right? I mean, you're going too fast to even realize what's happening. But we ended up getting on a roller coaster. And I said, just stand in line. You got to start telling your mind, I can do this. So she comes up in the line with us, and she stands, and then she crosses over, and she waits, holds the stuff. And the next one I said, you just got to sit down, just sit down in it. And she did. She sat down, put the thing on, and she said, I can't do it. So she got off. And then we went on another one. I said, sit down, buckle up. If you can't do it, you can get off. And I'm thinking, if you buckle up, girl, it's over. And she sits down, and I don't know if Andrea was praying that morning or what, but this woman had compassion on that girl, and she's crying. And the lady said, I'm legally obliged to take her out. I'm like, no, you're not. You're working for minimum wage. Shut up, get out of here. So she lets her out, and I'm like, oh man. But that ride, there was a different one, and it was probably a good thing she didn't ride on this. We were up front. Me and Brother Arntt's like, let's get the front seat of this one. And it just stopped. I don't know how high you are, but it just stops and it leans you over if you're in the front, so you're just looking straight down. And I said to Brother Arntt, it's probably a good thing she didn't get on this one. And then the next one, she was building up a little bit more courage. And she got on it, and she latched herself in, or she was latched in. She's sitting next to me. That was a dumb decision. And she's sitting next to me. She gets latched in. Buckles, and this time, praise the Lord, it's the teen guy who doesn't care. Amen. She goes, I want to get up. I want to get up. And it was too late, and the floor just, drops out from underneath you. And that was when panic set in. And I promise you, I've never heard somebody scream so loud in my life. She was screaming. She was saying, I'm gonna die! And she's holding on for dear life. And the best part about roller coasters, they always take you up, and then like the newer ones, they're not really jumpy, tick, 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 tick when you go up. This one was like, you come up, it stops, wham, tick, 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 and it just totally made the experience so much better. And the whole time up the ride, I'm thinking, Andrea, sing a song. I'm like trying to get her mind off of it. It wasn't working. And all of a sudden, I promise you, we start going, and she just starts screaming continually. The loudest, and it's not like the funny, fun scream, It's like a blood-curdling scream. And I promise you, it ruined the ride for everybody on the ride. The people in front of us are like, what in the world? And I'm like, I don't know. She is just terrified, screaming. She loses her glasses. Thank the Lord they fall in her lap. I don't know how that happened. But man, we pull in the station, everyone's like turning around, and I'm like, that was her. That was not me. Everybody on our group afterwards was like, Andrea, was that fun? And she's like, But I will say she ended up going again, and the second time, she said, I'll go on a ride if it's not a drop. And I came to the conclusion, am I going to lie and be okay with it? And the conclusion was yes. And she said, does this ride have a drop on it? And me and Brother Arntt's, we said, if she can't figure this out, we're not going to share that information. And we got on this ride, and it had to have been one of the top drops. And we just take off, and we showed it in Sunday school this morning. And she's sitting next to my wife, just talking, having fun. And all of a sudden, she goes, I thought there wasn't a drop. There's a drop. There's a drop. I'm going to get off. I'm going to get off. Same experience over again. But hey, she conquered her fears. Amen. And we all need hearing aids. Honestly, we had such a fun time, and she hates me now, and that's okay. But we definitely had a great time. So, Alexander, why don't you tell us something that you learned and something? Hello?
My favorite sermon was the one with the split session with the guys. Brother Dignan preached on being a man, and it's not an age, but by a decision of character. And I decided to be a man. And my favorite part of the fireworks. You could feel the explosions of the fireworks.
They did a fireworks show, but not like, and actually the college puts it on. And normally you think like, we're used to Grand Junction fireworks, where we have fire bands and nothing can go above a certain feet. But they did a fireworks show, probably went on for like 30 minutes. Honestly, it was really amazing fireworks. But anyway.
Well, my favorite sermon was Brother Shirley's about having a great God. Our God is not a good God, where he just made a way and said, you know what, there's a way, you can figure out how to do it yourself. But he's a great God, so he made a way for everybody, not just some people. And he helped show you the way. And then the decision I made was, like Alexander, just to be a man, part of that sermon. So. And the favorite part was definitely the Suburbans. Didn't want to ride in the bus at all. So
I promise you, Nathaniel is narcoleptic, because as soon as he sits down, he's every youth pastor's dream on a road trip.
I would say my favorite sermon was probably the split session with Brother Dignan, to be a man, because he said the only way to be a man is if you follow God's will and live by God, not by not looking at an appearance, but just live by God, and that's the only way you'll be a man. And my decision was to be a man for God, and the favorite part was probably the Suburbans and the slingshot with Brother Arns.
Isaac's favorite Brother Arns and him to go on the slingshot where it just launches you straight up in the air and you bounce around for a minute. And we got the videos of it. We'll have to share that sometime. But yeah, I was pretty impressed that he did it. That was awesome.
Well, the last sermon Brother Judah preached was about the next generation and how we have to be conscious and not be sleepwalkers for Christ and just going through the motions. And then to be convicted, to read your Bible, to pray, and then to be consumed. And I enjoyed that sermon. And I liked it when, what's his name? One of the pirates, it was a skit, and he made it rain in the auditorium, and there were tons of teams. So it sounded so cool with you just rubbing your hands and then snapping your fingers and then clapping, and it was awesome. That was my favorite part.
My favorite part would probably be the driftwood parts, and my favorite one would be the one about the electronics. And they told you that a lot of teenagers are always on their phones and they're using Snapchat and Facebook. So I decided that I should not be on my tablet as much as I always am. And my decision would probably be to just grow in God more, because I haven't been reading my Bible and praying as often as I should be. My favorite part would probably be the Myron and Cactus, the skit. They were pretty fun.
There's skits, they have two guys that do them every year. They're famous. They do a great job. They're hilarious. But Faith, this was your first team trip, right? She did great. It was awesome.
Well, my favorite sermon was by Brother Dignan about losing a shout for God, not praising him as much, and I decided to praise him more. And then my favorite part was yesterday. It was my birthday, so I was telling that at Chick-fil-A, and a cow started petting me. Yeah.
I didn't know that happened. That's great.
My favorite part of the conference was the ones with the driftwood. I really like the purity one, and just not to give in to peer pressure of what other teens are doing, and not to stay up late on your phone, and not to look at stuff you're not supposed to, and just to stay pure, and it would be worth it all in the end. And then my favorite part of the conference was just hanging out with my friends and getting closer to them.
The Driftwood segments, so what they did, the Driftwood was just 5-minute segments before the service. And one of them was about games, video games, another one, really they were just, we watched them, we would think, okay, that's interesting, but honestly they were very powerful, especially for teens. And some of them they kind of acted out, and really, I think all the teens would say, we talked about it, is that was probably one of the most powerful parts. You know, we like choked up over here. That was probably one of the most powerful parts. It was really amazing. So that's what they're talking about when they say driftwood.
Okay, So my favorite, it wasn't the sermon, it was another driftwood, but in one of his sermons he played a video of people in they're missionaries and them getting their Bibles, they kissed it and hugged it, and we just don't really care about our Bibles as much. And so it's definitely to take care of my Bible more. And then my decision was to take a stand in the youth group. And then my favorite part was probably the Suburbans. Those are pretty good. And then riding roller coasters was okay. And so thank you for the ride and the arts for pushing me to do that. So that made a memory.
For everybody.
So my favorite part of the preaching was a point that Brother Dignan made was about our shout and how people don't praise God as much as people used to. A decision that I made was being a better Christian than I used to be, and reading my Bible, soul winning. My favorite part was the Suburbans, going to Cedar Point and being able to go to my first conference.
Yeah. Jasmine Brooks, this was your first. Same with David with us. And, it was awesome. I love watching the faces when they walk into these auditoriums. I think there was over 2,000 teenagers there, and so we just walk in, their faces are like, what is going on? And then everything just starts, and everyone's just singing out loud and clapping. I love just looking down and watching some of our kids' face. They're like, what is going on? But Jasmine Brooks, they did a great job. Sorry, Brooks, go ahead. Her name is Kyla. I call her Brooks. Sorry. Kyla.
My favorite part was the technology one. And it only takes 11 minutes to read your Bible a year. And people spend more time on their phones than they do reading the Bible. So the decision I made was to delete my social media. And the part I liked was playing peekaboo with the cat.
Well, there was a lot of spectacular experiences that we had on this trip. Suburbans were pretty cool, but somehow Brother Ryan thought it through long before we even got into the Suburbans, how he had the one that sat 7 and he had his wife, and I ended up with 7 teenagers in my car. He had 5. All of his teenagers slept. None of mine did. He carefully thought that out and planned it out before we even got there. I'm not sure. It's hard to name just one thing. We could probably go on all night talking about this trip, but I do love, as the boys have mentioned down here, that my favorite sermon was the be a man. And it doesn't matter how old you are. It's never time to start being a man. That sounds weird, but awesome sermon. And then as they talked about the Driftwood segments, that very first one, even with that guy, and he was a video game addict, had a whole family and everything, and he just played video games. He'd get off work from his job, come home, play video games, and he ended up being like a top tier person among all these online players. And really, I took that, you apply it, it's just, all that is time wasting, is what it was about. And just about the amount of time we really wasted a day. And we tend to say, oh, well, I'm so busy, but then if you sit there and as I'm watching this, I'm thinking, boy, the amount of time I can waste. I can put a waste of time in a day, and not accomplish anything. And that one really kind of spoke to me there. But my favorite part would be when got to give you a little bit of a backstory. When I was a freshman in college, my youth pastor that I had growing up, he passed away of leukemia. He died of leukemia. And kind of got to be there, actually watched him pass in the hospital, experience there. And my youth pastor's wife, I haven't seen her in 10 years. And her kids, her 2 little kids that she had, well, they're not little anymore. But they were at that conference, and I got to see them again, and that was a blessing to see them. And just knowing what a youth pastor can mean in your life, and the influence they have on you. All right, go ahead.
My favorite sermon was the one about getting our shout back, and how we have our shout and and we should keep it in our church and like our buses and our Sunday school. I decided to help out more around the church and to do more overall. And my favorite part was hugging the cow that
I love how we drive over 3,400 miles. And half of your highlights is not Cedar Point or the conference. It's Kid the cow. That's awesome. Well, next year we're going to stay local.
Saves a lot of money.
My favorite sermon was by Brother Judah, and don't be a Damien. Don't sleepwalk and start singing Peace Like the River. My favorite part was the Suburbans and running the top through a dragster.
The Damien part, that was fun. Every group has a Damien. That's what he was saying. His Damien was a little special kid. Not special, but he had a sleep. I don't know what the technical name for sleepwalking is. And there's this doctor term that they use, and he had to take medication for it. I guess he forgot his medication or something. And one night down at the chapel, and just singing "Peace Like a River," And he said this kid was crazy. He said, they're not crazy. He was crazy. And from the story, he sounded pretty crazy. And so he's saying, don't be a Damien, but I think we have a couple Damiens. We have but
we also had Sebastian show up on the trip too. One of the preachers from North Carolina, he said he used to joke about having voices in his head, and he thought his son understood he was joking about it. So one day in the car, he said, Dad, I need your voices for you. And he said, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. And then he said the last one was Sebastian. And that was the crazy one that would come out. So we always said we had Sebastian coming out too. But I really enjoyed all the messages that were preached, and the driftwood, they were really convicting. The first, one of the first ones about Christians going through persecution, and it showed Christians in China getting their Bibles for the first time, never having them, and thinking about how much we take it for granted, or we go all week and we can't find our Bible. Also, one day we had a split session with Miss Heather Copaboon. She's a missionary to Peru, and she's been there for 6 years. But 3 years ago, her husband passed away on the mission field, and she's still there, and she's still serving God. And one thing she said she got it from the Dove wrapper, like the Dove chocolate, but she said God gave that to her, and it was one of the best things. But it said, read the last chapter first. And she talked about how if we could read the last chapter of our story that God's writing for us, then our whole story would make sense, and we would see how beautiful our story really is, even with the ups and downs of life. And just talking about always serving God through the ups and downs and praising God through it. And then one of the messages was about how great God is, and they really all work together. It was great. We could go on and on about it. But one of my favorite parts was getting to spend all the time with the girls. We had a great time. Our first night, or the first 2 nights we were in a hotel, we actually were able to all fit in one room. We had the biggest room in the hotel, and that wasn't planned, but God worked that out, so that was awesome.
It was like 2 rooms in one, but it was just open. And so, all right, throw all the girls in there.
Yeah.
The guys can split, praise the Lord. So,
yeah, it worked out great. And then Cedar Point was awesome. I almost broke my hand a couple times with Faith and Andrea sitting beside me. And Faith actually has a stronger grip than Andrea, even though she's like teeny tiny. And then one of the funny memories was one night I was out talking. It was the last night at the conference. I was talking to one of my old college friends, and the girls hid in the closets in the dorm room, and one hit under the bed. And I guess I took forever talking because they're like, it was so hot and they were sweating. So they got out and they came and snuck under the stairs, and when I was walking down, they ran back. And I was just sitting in the room. I thought they walked down to the bathroom to go get ready for showers or whatever. So I'm just singing to myself. And then 3 of them pop out of the closet. So I scream on the bed beside me. And then Jasmine reaches out and grabs my foot from under the chair. I lost my mind.
Sebastian came out?
Yeah. And then I got to see my youth pastor and youth pastor's wife. So that was pretty awesome too.
We had a good time. And one thing, I don't know if you noticed this, but how many people are up here? We brought a group of 15. Every single person, I think it's the first time since I've been youth pastor that everybody's gone on a trip and they were here Sunday morning, even though they're exhausted, and they're here again Sunday night. I think that says a lot about the group that went and just the faithfulness. To me, that is very encouraging. But Suburbans were great, and we're going to do another fundraiser. Amen. That was a very unexpected cost. So, but thank you so much, church, for just coming and getting your car washed. We'll ask you to do it again. But we really just thank you. We have a great group of kids, and Brother Arnsford, this was his first time on a teen trip. And one thing that we said is, man, we really have some good kids, and that comes from good parents. And so we appreciate you sending them on the trip with us. My favorite sermon had to be the last one from Brother Judah, and his last point, as Vashti mentioned them all, was just being consumed. And just being consumed about the things of Christ and just kind of getting a little bit more just involved just into it. And I'm really excited to get back and hit the ground running for this next kind of going into the school year here soon. I think our kids definitely made some great decisions. Church family, hope that now you know them, and please ask them, how are you doing on your decisions for youth conference? And be an encouragement to them, not obviously holding it over their head, but you at the conference, you shouldn't act like that. It's not like that. But, hey, how are things going? Are you reading your Bible, staying faithful? That would be a big blessing. So thank you again, church family. We really appreciate it.